Now we know where to get the tools we need. We should start figuring out how to put them to good use. There's an old saying, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It expresses the idea of tunnel vision. If all you have is a hammer, the only thing you can do is drive things with it as if they were nails. Thankfully, the Constitution is not a single tool, but a tool kit. And like any toolkit, there are some tools we use more often than others. That's not to say the other tools are less valuable, but I found a couple of tools that are almost universal in their ability to help the other tools work. Which brings us back to the Supremacy Clause. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. I know we've already mentioned the Supremacy Clause, but there are a few things about this tool that may not be obvious at first. The Supremacy Clause clearly lists three things as the supreme law of the land. First, the Constitution. That seems pretty obvious. Second, the laws of the United States, but only those laws made pursuant to the Constitution or following the Constitution. Lastly, treaties. Again, only those treaties made under the authority of the United States. And where does the United States get its authority? Why, from the Constitution, of course. This means that just because Congress passes a law or the President signs a treaty with the advice and consent of the Senate, it does not make it the supreme law of the land. In fact, as Alexander Hamilton put it in Federalist 78, there is no position which depends on clear principles that every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it is exercised, is void. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution can be valid. To deny this would be to affirm that the deputy is greater than his principal, that the servant is above his master, that the representatives of the people are superior to the people themselves, that men, acting by virtue of powers, may do not only what their powers do not authorize, but what they forbid. Now, let's look at what is not included as the supreme law of the land. Executive orders are not the supreme law of the land. Neither are rules and regulations made by the executive branch. Even the decisions of courts are not the supreme law of the land. In fact, the rest of the Supremacy Clause states, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. In other words, the judges are bound to the Constitution, not the other way around. That sounds like a pretty beefy tool to me. The next tool we need to have in our pocket is the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Simply put, if the Constitution doesn't delegate a power to the United States, then it belongs to someone else. Though some people like to state that the Constitution implies powers it doesn't specifically enumerate, that doesn't match with what the 10th Amendment says. Another important point. Powers are delegated to the United States. What does it mean to delegate? Again, Webster's 1828 dictionary defines delegate as to entrust, to commit, to deliver to another's care and exercise, as to delegate authority or power to an envoy, representative, or judge. That means the powers not only had to exist before they were delegated to the United States, but they needed to be possessed by another entity. In this case, as the 10th Amendment points out, the powers not delegated to the United States are reserved to the states or the people. Reserved is defined as kept for another or future use, retained. That means that any power the Constitution does not delegate to the United States is yours, either directly or through your state. These two clauses provide so much power to the other tools in the Constitution. It's like going from a simple screwdriver to a power screwdriver. Sure, you have a right to not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, according to Amendments 5 and 14. But the Supremacy Clause means no entity can legally place an exception to that law. It also means that when the federal government comes in to regulate something they have not been delegated the power to regulate, the 10th Amendment is your legal authority to say no.